Looking at the aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic, we have seen a massive push in digitalization. Many experts speak of a digital transformation, which has now been pushed even further due to the great advancements in artificial intelligence. Considering this, what have been the main challenges in your own professional context?
This is a really interesting question. And I think we probably have to distinguish between the COVID-19 pandemic and artificial intelligence. Um, when it comes to COVID-19, for some teacher educators at my faculty, there were quite some challenges concerning just the generic digital competence problems, basically how to connect, how to use Zoom, how to use a camera, how to record videos. That I guess we had quite an advantage since we had a professional development project right before COVID-19. So most of our teacher educators were already quite good at using all the tools. So when they went online, they actually became quite creative. So even though some of them had challenges in the beginning, most of them overcame them quite fast since they actually were quite used to using digital tools. And that also made it possible for them to reflect on teaching online. But when it comes to artificial intelligence, and now I'm basically talking about chatbots because that's what most of my colleagues and I also are talking about when we discuss teaching and learning with digital tools and artificial intelligence. I guess one of the most prominent challenges is not related to using tools or using artificial intelligence and the chatbots because, well, you try sometime, yeah, you just test it, and after some time you get quite good at writing prompts and then getting interesting answers. That I think the challenges here are more related to reflection about learning and how we come to knowledge and the role of the teacher and how that is developing. So it's not about tools and which button to press. When it comes to artificial intelligence and especially chatbots, the question is, and the challenges are more related to those fundamental questions about teaching and learning.
Looking back, what was one of the most innovative solutions you came across?
When I think of COVID-19, I had some colleagues who, and I'm still so fascinated by what they did. They had planned on a project on Storyline, which is basically a way of a version of role playing. And they had a project that included all the students in teacher education. And then COVID-19 hit. And they actually moved this physical role play where they use different kind of costumes and roles, and it's really, really creative. They actually managed to put this role play online, and they managed to execute a way of teaching that was so, yeah, it was just amazing to see how engaged the students got. And it was not just sitting there having the lecture online instead of in the classroom. They really engaged the students, and they had those different roles, and yeah, that they made COVID more pleasant for the students. And when it comes to artificial intelligence, what happened here in Norway is that we had some schools and teachers that got really engaged and thought, well, this is something that we have to discuss with our students. This is something we have to use, that we have to teach them how to use artificial intelligence and chatbots, what the risks are, what the gains are. And they built their own chatbots that also were GDPR safe, so that they can use them with the students. And they developed a chatbot that is like a kind of Socrates. So you can ask it different questions, but it will never give you an answer. It always helps you to think further. And then they also build on different age levels. So depending on the age of the student, this Socrative bot will ask questions that are adapted to the student's level. And I found that quite innovative solution of using AI in teaching, not related to artificial intelligence or COVID, is something that we did on a project 2 or 3 years ago. I'm quite fond of using video in teaching to also to enhance reflection and make students look at themselves and analyze what they are doing. And we combined that with video annotation. So when students gave a lecture or a kind of presentation, they were filmed with their own devices, and then they could upload that video in the learning platform. And then we had a kind of peer review activity. And some students, they looked at another presentation and they annotated what they saw and gave feedback on the go, basically. And then later on, the group that had the presentation could watch the presentation again with the comments of the other people. And that also made them reflect even more. And that was really, really interesting. We also interviewed the students afterwards, and they found this a really interesting way of looking at themselves and seeing what they did and or didn't do. I guess that are some examples.
On an institutional level, what kind of general infrastructure or strategies were provided by your university?
I think, as I mentioned before, since we had that project for digitalization and teacher education right before COVID hit, many of the teacher educators were prepared. It was a 3-year project focused on teacher educators' digital competence and digital competence in teaching. So we had it was quite intense because we received quite a lot of funding. It was about 19 million Norwegian krona. And then when I told my colleagues that we had received that funding, they all looked at me and asked, "Oh, what can we buy?" And I told them, well, nothing. What the project is going to buy is your time. So we ensured that they had reduced teaching hours, and that they were supposed to use that time that they were not supposed to, that they were free now to engage in professional development, focusing on digital competence and teaching. So we already had courses on how to make videos, how to record your lectures, how to use green screens, how to work with digital storytelling, about digital responsibility, flipped classroom. So it was a huge project, and most of the, as I said before, most of the teacher educators were actually prepared. And we had also already invested in quite a lot of infrastructure. And well, I don't know to what degree that is typical for teacher educations in other countries, but our teacher educators do I guess they have most of the infrastructure they need, and or they had that already before COVID. So they had 1 or 2 screens, actually. They all had their computers, they all had their webcams, additional microphones. And it might be that someone needed an extra camera or an extra microphone, or actually, I think what we actually invested in was GoPros and additional tools that you could use for being even more creative in your teaching, instead of only having those synchronous online lectures. And in addition to what we already had, the faculty offered online courses for the teachers or teacher educators that did not feel that comfortable with digital tools yet. And I have a colleague who's he's Mr. Sharing. So he's been sharing all his resources and helping. We're just running around helping each other.
According to you, how do you think can virtual and physical settings be connected more successfully in teacher education?
This is a really interesting question, and I think there are many possibilities. On the one hand, if we just think of the normal teaching setting, and in Norway we have a challenge with students actually coming to campus or being able to take part in teacher education, since they probably are working already or have other obligations. So I think it could be an idea to provide more either hybrid teaching or online teaching, so that we can combine those different arenas. it is a challenge, and especially teaching hybrid is really challenging because you have that one group over here and that one group on the screen, and how do you combine them and how do you teach student active? But it is possible, and we have some wonderful examples from the University of Oslo where they are trying that, and the students are really, really satisfied. And in that case, it's actually it's organized in that way that the teacher educator doesn't even know in advance which students will be on campus and which ones will be online. They just appear wherever. But they manage, and they're really creative in teaching as well. So I think this is a way to go to make teaching more flexible. And this does not only go for teacher education, I guess that's basically something that is relevant for all courses at university. But when it comes to teacher education especially, I think there are many possibilities to use videos from school and VR technology or simulations to prepare student teachers better for those challenges that they actually experience in practice. That could also be conversations with parents, all those situations where you have to act in the situation, because that might help them when they then actually are done and are supposed to teach them, stand in the classroom after just having had some shorter practice periods to be familiar with the practice arena.
Some teacher educators are still critical of digitalization. What would you like to tell them?
There are many teacher educators that are critical to digitalization. Actually, I have become quite critical myself. And I'm not always sure if you need all those digital tools in teaching. And I think it's okay to be critical, and it's important to be critical, but you have to be open and critical. I think as teacher educators, we really have to discuss who we are as teacher educators and what our responsibilities are. And I think as a teacher educator, one of our, and probably also when we think of the public mandate, we are supposed to prepare teachers for teaching in this digital world. I mean, we can't say it's not digital anymore. It is. And then we can't say, well, no, this is not for me. But this is something that is important that we talk about. And there are far too many teacher educators who work alone, who do not talk with their colleagues, who don't discuss, who probably are not really sure who they are as teacher educators. And then it's difficult to, or if you don't talk to others, it's easy to say, well, this is not important for me.
Universities in particular are highly complex systems that need a long time to change and adapt in terms of teaching, research, and administration. If you think about 5 years from now, what do you think is most important to successfully support the digital transformation in teacher education?
This also connects to what I just said. Working together in collaboration in teacher education is important. And this is also something that it's one of the findings that I had in my PhD, that collaboration in teacher education is one of the keys for facilitating digital competence. And also teachers and teacher educators understanding of the digitalization and understanding what digital competence is, what digital competence for teaching is. So collaboration and time for collaboration and time for talking to each other is really, really important. I think that's what we need.